FNCS Global Championship, the $2 million LAN is a few days away, and all you guys keep asking me is, Aussie, who do you think is winning it? So I'm gonna go through all of my predictions today. I'm gonna give you guys my top 20, talk about a whole bunch of the teams, some of the drama that's coming out of the tournaments recently, why I think some of the favorites are maybe not gonna do as good as what some of you guys are thinking, and just keep you up to date on exactly what's happening coming into the biggest event of the year. There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump into it. I know my background looks a little bit different. I am currently in Berlin. I'm here for a sponsor event. I'll be back at my regular setup for Globals. No, I'm not traveling to Dallas. I'm sorry. I will be doing a watch party from home though, again on my Twitch channel. You guys already know, but I want to go through my predictions. Now, I'm not going to give my exact top 10 in order. I'm going to talk about who I think is getting top 5, top 10, and then top 20. I also want to talk about how some of these teams are doing and my reasoning behind this, because there's a lot that's going on right now between the Cash Cup we just had and then the scrims. There is actually a lot to talk about. So first off, let me kick off with my top 5 and I'll talk about why. Obviously, top of the list, Peterbot and Pollo. Now, this is a weird one. Raft is looking very, very strange. Why have I got someone in my top 5 who is quadruple contested? At this point, Peterbot and Pollo are such a feared duo that the other 3 teams are all agreeing to drop one side of Raft and fight each other, giving Peterbot and Pollo uncontested on their side, including the boss with the most broken medallion in the game right now. Again, absolutely ridiculous. I never thought we'd see this happen, and I have to say, I don't know whether we're gonna see this on LAN. So Kazi Aspect, Swizzy Yapko, Trashy Threats, and Peterbot and Pollo are the 4 teams dropping the Raft. Now, again, all 3 of them are apparently not gonna drop on Peterbot Pollo, but I doubt that. In a 12-game format, surely if one of them is getting absolutely rolled off spawn, they either leave or start dropping on Peterbot Pollo. Now, even having said this, I still think Peterbot and Pollo, even with one of these teams dropping on their side, will get a top 10. For the top 5, I think they're gonna have to get it uncontested for at least a good portion of the tournament. Maybe not all 12 games, but a good part of it. They also are playing very, very aggressive for the forecast tower. Not really sure whether they're gonna be doing this on LAN. They've very much been doing it in both the Cash Cup and the scrims. I talked about that in my most recent video. Peterbot and Pollo have every intention of taking Clix and Veno's forecast tower. I just don't know at LAN, when they're contesting, there's so many teams around them, whether they're gonna be able to just get out so quickly, and if they do try to fight Clix and Veno for it, what's stopping one of these teams from now third-partying them? So as much as Peterbot and Pollo are in my top 5 like they're in most people's, we'll have to see how LAN goes. This could go very, very poorly for them after a very dominant chapter. They tried to claim the best POI on the map, which I'm still questioning. I feel like Peterbot and Pollo, if they just claimed any other really good POI on the map, would have had it uncontested, but they had to try to go for the best spot, and we'll see if it pays off for them.
Trying to improve at Fortnite but not even knowing where to begin is one of the most frustrating things about getting better at this game. But that's where the sponsor of today's video comes in, Blitz. All you have to do is download Blitz and run in the background of your game, and it'll tell you a whole bunch of useful information like the amount of damage you've done, how much you've taken, your headshot ratio, and it even breaks it down per weapon, so you can figure out which weapons you're doing better or worse with. Even better than this, you can compare this to other player stats to see where you stack up against the pros and where you need to work on. Maybe you're not worried about seeing how you stack up against the pros, but you just want to see how you're doing against your teammates. Well, it also tracks their damage done as well as show you their loadout. So if your teammate's been lying to you and telling you they don't have any big pots, now you'll know. Blitz has a whole bunch of other useful tools such as finding your next drop spot on the map. It can optimize your loadouts, and you can even check what the newest items are in the Fortnite item shop. Blitz will also work on a whole bunch of your other favorite games as well, like Apex Legends, Valorant, League of Legends. So if you want to download it and give it a try today, click my link in the description down below.
Next up on my list, fan favorites, Clix and Veno. Now, despite Peterbot and Pollo taking their forecast tower, they're still looking extremely good. They were looking even better with the jetpacks. That change has nerfed them quite heavily, but this team has been really locked in. It's the first time I've seen in Clix's competitive career where he's not streaming scrims, and when he played the duo Cash Cup, he streamed it with no comms, so stream couldn't hear. Obviously, him, Veno, and BloodX could hear each other, but the stream couldn't hear us. They didn't reveal any strategies. So they are as locked in as I've ever seen them, and they're looking very, very good in scrims right now. We've had other pros commenting on how both of them look mechanically right now, how they are both in their primes mechanically, so they are a surefire pick for a top 5, unless something goes wrong. That issue, that fight that's going on around the forecast tower could be very interesting. Clix and Veno also in scrims at the moment. We're making a play for Cammy and Seti's bunker, but I don't think they're gonna try to do that on LAN. LAN, but also I am putting them on my prediction because they have a team contested to their northwest. They have Resigns and Demo, the OCE team, gone up against Keiki and Kichoro. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that one. So they can third party that fight. They can third party whatever is going to be going on over at the Raft. They can claim the forecast tower if Peterbot and Poyo start getting dropped on. And I have a feeling if any team around them is going to get contested, Kami and Seti might be another team that people have eyes on. So I think they have a great position to kind of take advantage of these other teams. And I don't think they're going to be a team that gets dropped on. Their biggest issue with LAN though is going to be if a team tries to claim the mountain above them and cut off a lot of their loot. That would hurt them quite a lot, and I could potentially see that happening. But if they get Sandy Steps uncontested the way it is right now, I think they're a surefire for top 5. Now, our first double EU duo, don't worry, my list is not super NA biased. It's maybe a little bit NA biased, but we have Vico and Flixie, the FNCS champions out of Reckless Railways. They've just won the first duo cash cup of the season. They're coming off the FNCS win. They're uncontested at the drop spot they just did both of this from. They're looking amazing. This duo looks extremely strong right now. I'm very happy. There was a lot of clips going around of Flixie's free building so people could realize just how good Flixie is. Like, Vico is one of the best fighters in the world. He is absolutely insane. But when you've got Flixie as your IGL, the player who's leading the duo, who's usually known to be, you know, slower mechanically, and it's Flixie, you are a terrifying duo. Scary enough to scare off Chap and Teeny. That's why they're getting one of the biggest POIs on the map right now, very close to center map, uncontested. Now, I don't know if they're going to try to fight for the forecast tower that Bryce and Bolts are going for to the south. They might go for a little bit of fight for it. I know Vico and Flixie mentioned a lot. I actually did a podcast with Vico, with Levin, and he was talking about how he likes to go for these kind of like little fights where he engages, gets some good damage, and then disengages. Not these all-in fights, but it's not just getting Surge at range, it's being comfortable enough to take box fights for Surge. And that's, again, because when you've got Vico and Flixie on the same team, you should be confident at box fights. So I'm very excited to see how this duo does. We'll see whether they can handle the pressure on LAN. Vico won the Red Bull solo LAN. It was a little bit of an interesting LAN. Not a lot of people count it as an official LAN, but you know, when he's been at LAN, he's handled the pressure and performed really, really well. Now, as far as Flixie goes, we haven't got a chance to see how Flixie performs on LAN at a high level just yet. Hasn't placed in like a top 5 or anything, but I think Flixie's been putting in a lot of work coming into this. Again, both Peterbot and Poyo and Vico and Flixie have been working with the same coach, Razaru, who I gas up a lot. And I know if any teams are going into this fully prepped and have some kind of a strategy or really know what they're doing, it's gonna be Razaru's clients. My last 2 spots are going to 2 NA teams, which I know means that I have 3.5 NA teams and 1.5 EU teams in my top 5, but I have both the Boogers. I have Batman Booger and Rapid, and then I have regular Booger and Aviv. Now, Batman Booger and Rapid is also a duo that I just really want to see do well. They've gotten a top 10 on LAN in the past, which a lot of people forget about. I'm not just rating them because they've all of a sudden started popping off out of nowhere. They are a team that's been playing together for a while, have done well on LAN in the past, and they have uncontested Grim Gate, a drop spot they've been doing really, really well at for the last couple of seasons. So they've been practicing a lot in scrims, and I know both Rapid and Batman Booger are high ping players. Rapid plays out of California, Batman Booger plays out of Washington. They both play on about 40 to 60 ping. Again, it's not super high. South Africans watching this, I know, I'm sorry that I'm saying 40 ping is high, but for a professional level, for a high level, that is quite high. So going down to 0 ping on LAN is definitely an advantage you have to consider. When Batman Booger and Rapid both moved to 0 ping last season, they came second. They do extremely well when they have that ping advantage. So I'm very excited to see how this duo does on LAN. Hopefully they can handle the pressure. I know they've been preparing a lot coming into it. Another high ping player who, again, I expect to have a similar advantage is Aviv. Aviv, a lot of people don't even realize, plays on like 50 to 60 ping because he never talks about it and plays so well and so aggressively. People don't even realize he's a higher ping pro. Pair that with Booger, someone who obviously has a lot of LAN experience, and they're looking really, really good. Now, this team, obviously, when I talk about experience, this is Aviv's first LAN. Out of my top 5 right now, he is the only player who has never competed at an international LAN, which does scare me a little bit. But you put that alongside Booger, who has obviously competed in every single LAN and won the World Cup. He's going to be able to give him some of that experience, hopefully coach him through this so the nerves and whatever else might not affect him. I'm hoping we do see that big improvement from Aviv on 0 ping. It's not like he needs it, but going from 50 ping to fighting on 0 hopefully should be some kind of a boost. I also think they have one of the most underrated drop spots. I think it's Doom's Courtyard is the name of it. It has a whole bunch of the new chests. It looks extremely good. They're right over the edge near a bunch of teams that are being contested at Doom Castle. Again, you've got Bobby going up against Wazzy above the Doom's Castle. You've got Rezon and Vidil, Chiefs and Iomzo, and Shalom and Zagu all trying to split Doom Castle. It's a lot for Booger and Aviv to work with to get good surge tags, and they can then also use the permanent mobility around them with the castle, with the launch pads to get around the map. Also, Booga playing from this drop spot last season is used to abusing the nitro rings to rotate further south. There is a lot of these still around the map, and I think it's going to help this team a lot. They did just win the Duo Cash Cup, the first Duo Cash Cup of the season, heading into the LAN. So they're going in confident as well. Now, one thing I will say though, I was noticing from the Dignitas Fortnite video that got posted a couple days ago, you should check it out if you haven't, on Booga, every time he wins a Cash Cup before going into LAN, he doesn't do too hot. So I hope that's not some kind of curse that's rearing its head here, but I really, really want to see it. Now, again, I know I'm missing a lot of big teams in that top 5. I'm now going to talk about my top 10. It's probably including a lot of teams there. It's very hard. It's LAN. My top 5 could be completely wrong. I just want to talk about some of these teams that are looking good and give you guys my thoughts. Please don't flame me if I'm wrong. I'm not that confident. It's very, very hard at an international level to know exactly what's going on. Also, you're going to notice my list is very EU and NA heavy. It's not that I don't think anyone from the smaller regions is going to do well. I just don't have as much to talk about them. If we see like a really insane pop-off from Zagu, again, we've seen it in the past. We've seen an Asia team get top 5 with MK Papa and Shalom at last LAN. We saw the Brazil team do really, really well this season before. We've seen small region teams do well. I just don't know a lot about them this time. I'm sorry. All right, now for my top 10. Now, any of these teams could also get in the top 5 and I wouldn't be surprised at all. I'm trying to cut it a little bit, so I'm not just doing all the top 10. You guys get my kind of top 5, and now I'll talk about other teams that could easily win it or do really, really well, but I think they're just a little bit behind those other teams. Now, Cammy and Seti, this is a weird one for me because based on last season's performance, I really thought Cammy and Seti were gonna have their first really bad LAN. They are the LAN GOATs. Cammy and Seti have done so well at so many LANs now, both as solos and duos. I think they are, in my opinion, the undisputed LAN GOATs, at least since World Cup ended, because neither of them played at World Cup as far as I can remember. But they did really poorly last season. They got contested off drop, they did really bad, and I thought that was gonna lead to them going into LAN being contested. I wasn't alone in this. Even people like Levin, good friends with, who is usually really, really biased towards the EU guys, let's be honest, was saying, look, this LAN's gonna be rough for them. I think they're just gonna get contested. They have to lock in, win the spawn fight, build back up their reputation, and then focus on next year. Like a lot of people are talking about their year being over. They're now uncontested. Cammy Seti are uncontested on what is the Cammy and Seti split. They always have a split. We know this duo doesn't like locking down major POIs. They always play off these big splits and make them work really well. Their biggest weakness is they're known to be weaker spawn fighters, and that's what happened last season. I thought someone at LAN was going to abuse that, but at the moment, no one really is. So as long as Cammy and Seti stay uncontested, I definitely have them in my top 10. They're good enough, and you know if any team is coming in extremely prepared or even better, has some kind of secret strategy like they did in Chapter 3 when they won Invitational, it's gonna be Cammy and Seti. So I have them in my top 10, but again, that is very heavily predicated on the fact that they don't get contested. But they're one of those teams, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm looking at to maybe get surprise contested. Now, I gotta represent the Dig Boys. We have Kanata and Cooper. Now, I'm surprised to see these not on more people's list. They're uncontested at Nitrodrome, which is not the best drop on the map, but it's definitely not terrible. And Cooper and Kanata have been doing really well out of it, out of scrims. It's been interesting to see the fact that Cooper and Kanata have been playing a lot of pro scrims this season, but not a lot together. They've been playing them in 2 separate duos, which I don't really know if there's anything going on there with the vibes. I think they're actually trying to just keep the vibes good. They're both motivated to grind, but they don't want to like play together too much coming into the LAN. I don't know, maybe that's a bad sign, but I really do think this duo could do extremely well. Cooper, obviously the last LAN winner, has handled the pressure, done extremely well. Kanata has done very, very well in the past at LAN. Usually is contested off spawn, and usually what he's known for is dominating on spawn. Now we get to actually see Kanata uncontested on LAN. I'm excited to see what that means. Kanata usually steps up and elevates the bigger the lobby. The more important it is, like grand finals, he plays so much better. And I think on LAN, it's gonna be another step up from that. I really hope so. This is where I do want to talk about Chap and Teeny. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm bringing them up. It's because a lot of people are talking about this. Chap and Teeny have kind of claimed a bunch of different drop spots and moved around them. Chap and Teeny started this season going Nitrodrome. They decided to move. They went over and dropped on Vico and Flixie at Reckless Railways. Then they decided to move. Now they're dropping over at the Underworld. They did really poorly at the Underworld last week in the Duo Cash Cup finals, and now it's leading a lot of people to suspect or talk about this. I've heard some rumors that Chap and Teeny might be splitting up their drop spots. We've seen the Teeny and Misha strat a few seasons ago in grand finals where they dropped like 9 different locations in 12 games and came top 3. I don't think they're going to go that far, but there's a lot of drop spots they know well that it looks like they're comfortable to go if the other drop spots don't work. So if Chap and Teeny start struggling at Underworld, I don't think there's anything stopping them from maybe going Nitrodrome and dropping on Cooper Kanata, maybe going back and trying Reckless, dropping on Vico Flixie. Maybe they're one of the teams that thinks, hey, Cammy and Seti, they struggle on Spawn, let's go fight them. They're the kind of like team that I'm looking at to change things up and ruin my predictions. If they start moving around and switching up their drop spots, a lot of the things I'm talking about will go out the window. Again, my predictions are very heavily based on the drop map as it is now. So I'm interested to see if Chap and Teeny do that on LAN. It's also why I don't have Chap and Teeny in my top 10. They've just come second in back-to-back FNCSs. Again, they've done extremely well, but Chap has never played on a LAN before. This is going to be his third, technically, grand finals lobby. That's insane. He just doesn't have the experience for it, but again, I could be proven very wrong and they have some crazy strategy up their sleeve. I'm just not comfortable predicting it after last week's performance and not really knowing what their plan is. Next up, another EU team. We have Rezon and Vidil, big fan favorites out of Germany. They are going Doom Castle. They are the ones that are going to be getting the boss for the most part, I'm guessing, which means they are going to get the Mythic Monarch pistol. That is going to be extremely strong for Storm Surge. Knowing that you get that every single game is a very big boost. It's probably the best mythic on the map, up there obviously with the burst rifle. And again, they're both very strong because they get you guaranteed surge. If you're good with the Monarch pistol, you are absolutely beaming people getting max surge, and that is a huge boost in a lobby that is going to be this stacked. Yes, you lose that spray potential in endgame the mythic burst gives you, or again, anyone running a burst, but one of the biggest issues with this season, especially for the smaller drops, is not getting the good weapons, it's getting the good weapons with good scopes. If you want to stay above the surge threshold, especially with the caliber of this lobby, you're going to need to be getting a Monarch pistol with a good scope or a burst rifle with a good scope, and both of your duos needs to get this. If one of you doesn't have it, you're probably going to have to fight for your surge, which is a lot scarier. So I think that's a huge boost to Rezon and Vidil. They've played extremely consistent this chapter, and they've done very well, also well contested. So there's a lot of teams dropping around them. Again, they're going to be versing Cheeps and Yomzo and Shalom and Zagu at Doom's Castle. At this point, both these teams have kind of, made it clear at least their intention is not to fight at the drop spot. They want to just take some of the loot and rotate out, but nothing is stopping them from pushing in onto Rezon and Vidil. So again, that prediction could change, but I like their spot right now. All right, now my top 20. I'm going to rapid fire through this one a little bit quicker, otherwise it's going to be a super long video. None of these have been in order so far, and these won't be in order either. Just kind of teams that I think are looking really good. So Bryson Bolts, Mustache and Malabuka, Acorn and Cold, Barker and Paz, Queasy and Thomas HD, Chap and Teeny, CZB and Nathan, Dukes and Sphinx, Trulex and Chicho, and then Victor V and Paper. Now you'll notice I don't have any team from Brazil, Asia, Middle East, and OC. I'm sorry, it is just ignorance. I'm just gonna be honest here. I don't know enough about them to put them in the top 20. There's always been those insane pop-off performances where we have a small team get a top 5 or a top 10 at LAN, and it's super exciting. And I'm never being like, oh man, they fluked it. They're so lucky. I love the small regions, but I wanna try and use these videos to educate you guys. And if I'm just sitting here being like, yeah, Phaser and King, King won 4 seasons of FNCS. He's looking really good. Last couple LANs, he didn't do so good. Don't really know what his strategy is coming into this, don't know really how he's done in cash cups, haven't watched the scrims, hopefully he does well. I just want to have a little bit more confidence with my predictions. So if you're watching from a small region, I'm sorry, I don't hate you, it's just hard to pay attention to every single region, okay? Please don't flame me, I'm doing my best, okay? Now, let's talk about some of these. Bryson Bolts, they've been my dark horse pick for a really long time now. I gassed them up a lot last season. A lot of people questioned me for that, and they ended up proving me right. So I'm gonna keep sticking to them. I think they're looking really good. They're just dropping southeast of Reckless. Again, they're dropping like the pink split over near the fallen plane crash. They're looking really good this season as well. They've been practicing a whole bunch. Bryce, I think, is again one of the most underrated players. Going into the last LAN, Bryce really shocked people alongside Chubbs. A lot of people were surprised they even made LAN. They did extremely well, and I really think Bryson Bolts are going to be insane. Bolts is one of the most mechanical, best fighters when it comes to being on 0 ping. He usually plays on quite high ping at home. It seems to affect him more than it does most players. When he's on low ping, he is an absolute demon. So I'm very excited to see how that duo does. Now, Mustache and Malabuka. Aussie, how do you have Mustache and Malabuka outside your top 10? I'm sorry, I really think they can get a top 10. They're contested. They're contested by Alex and Worthy at Restored Reels. Now, Alex and Worthy haven't done that well this season. I'm gonna be honest, they didn't do well last season when they moved over to NA. They haven't looked too hot. They have just arrived for the LAN a few days early. They're playing the pro scrims today. They were uncontested again. I think they were trying to find their feet. I don't know what it is about Alex and Worthy. I don't know if one of them struggles when they're playing away from home, but something seems to go off when this team goes internationally. I would love them to prove me wrong. I would love nothing more than Alex and Worthy to go insane, get a top 5, win it all. It would be amazing. I love both those guys, but I just haven't seen it. So even though they haven't been doing that great, I still think it's just not a team that you want to be contesting anyway though. Mustache and Malabuka decided to stop dropping on Booger and Aviv. I think that was a smart choice. They've now gone for a center map drop where they have to finish the fight pretty quickly because there's not a lot of loot at Restored Reels. They're not fighting with one of the best POIs, but Mustache and Malabuka are an extremely good team. And one thing they're known for is not necessarily being good spawn fighting teams, but I've talked to a bunch of pros about this. I've talked to Acorn who's versed them on spawn, Kanata who's versed them on spawn, and Pink who's versed them on spawn, and I've asked them about Malabuka as a spawn fighter. He's always said the same thing. The worst part is, it's not like it's impossible to beat them on spawn, but if you let them get away, if you let them get off spawn, even if they only have 3 chests, or you let them win the fight, somehow they always pop off in every single game. They make it off spawn, so even if you beat them in, let's say, 8 out of the 12 games, the 4 games they win, they're gonna pop off and get so many points, they end up winning on the leaderboard, and that's what's so frustrating about versing them. So I do think they could pull off a top 10, especially if Alex and Worthy do struggle on LAN like they did last year, but it's still contested, so I'm still scared to put them in my top 10. I'm in a very similar situation for Acorn and Cold. Acorn and Cold, again, they're contested on spawn by Antics and Sato. Last week in the Duo Cash Cup finals, they were uncontested and did honestly quite poorly. And while I think Acorn and Cold are going to win this spawn fight, I think they're gonna win it more than they lose it against Antics and Sato. They're both phenomenal spawn fighters. I'm just, again, too scared to put them in my top 10, especially from a drop spot that isn't that strong and is really far edge of the map. We could see a situation where Clix and Veno or other players in that south side of the map just farm them as they rotate in late because they're locked into a spawn fight. It is also an awkward spawn fight if you try to drop at either end of the ship and just stalemate it out. Antics and Sato also just came top 3 in the first Duo Cash Cup finals of the season, so they're coming in pretty hot, hotter than I thought they were going to. So I'm a little bit worried for Acorn and Cold, a team that I do want to see do well. Now, Barker and Paz, they're dropping uncontested. They're dropping the same split they've been going for a very, very long time now. They're going the Shipard station, where Mr. Savage and Mongol used to drop, if you remember it. They're looking really good, and I think they actually stand to do a lot of damage to the teams that are dropping over on the raft, third-partying it and playing super aggressive. So I honestly probably could have them higher in my top 10, just haven't seen them handle the pressure of LAN as well as I would like, and I want to see them do that. But they're looking very good. I can't see anything to fault them about, their drop spot coming in. No dramas there. Just want to see a little bit more experience. Now, we have Queasy and Thomas HD, obviously a team with a lot of experience. One of the main reasons why I don't have them in my top 10 is just the drop spot. They're going Research Rock. It's not a bad drop. It's a bunch of metal. It's a bunch of really good loot, but it's right on the edge of the map. So the more stacked the lobby, the more they're going to struggle out of this drop. I think the weapons like the Monarch pistol heavily lean into the strengths of players like Thomas HD, who are very, very good at single shot weapons and getting surge, but at the same time, I'm still a little bit scared because of the drop spot. But it's Queasy and Thomas. They shocked me so much by doing extremely well out of contested Mount Olympus. I'm happy to see they've now left Mount Olympus and they're not contested, but their drop spot doesn't make me want to put them in the top 10. We'll see. I hope they prove me wrong. Now, Chapantini, I already talked about earlier in the video. CZB and Nathan. Now, CZB and Nathan's a weird one because they are contested. Now, they're dropping Grand Glacier. When they get Grand Glacier uncontested, they do extremely well. I'm kind of almost hoping here that Cal leaves the drop spot. Cal Gamer, I know, is a phenomenal fighter, and I think he will do quite well in this spawn fight. I'm kind of hoping that CZB and Nathan somehow pull off some kind of like a 6-0 on day 1 miraculously, and then Cal leaves, because I think if CZB and Nathan had Grand Glacier uncontested, they would pull off the dark horse performance that would just catapult them, and everyone would be like, who are these guys? Because almost no one's talking about them for an EU team, but contested in Grand Glacier is pretty brutal. So it's kind of one of those picks I've put on there because I love this duo. I think they're super underrated. I want to gas them up, but it's going to be a hard spawn fight. So it's going to be whether they can win it on day 1 convincingly and try to get Cal's team to leave. Dukes and Sphinx, I think they're looking really good. They're going Brawler's Battleground. They have it uncontested. There's a lot of teams around them, again, that are uncontested. I would probably want to have them higher on my list if I thought there was a team they could farm for Surge on their rotate in, but it's going to be interesting to see how they play this one. They're both extremely good. I think Dukes Jukes really does level up when it's a higher lobby, when it's a LAN lobby. I think he is someone who handles LAN pressure really, really well. I'm excited to see whether Sphinx can do that also. Trulex and Chicho, a team that always seems to have a lot of people talking about them. They are the creators of the current Surge meta, building gigantic towers and farming Surge. I almost hate them for that. Someone was eventually going to come up with it, but they definitely accelerated that meta, but they have been underperforming a little bit. So I want to see Trulex and Chicho do well. I think they are a phenomenal duo who is easily good enough for a top 10. I wouldn't be surprised to see them, but I do think they kind of have very up and down performances. So I hope they do well at the LAN. I've definitely got them in my top 20, but I'm interested to see whether they can handle it. Now, this last one is kind of a bit of a hope pick. I'm picking them over teams that I think could do extremely well, like Rise and Age in some of the small regions, but Paper and Victor V. I want Paper and Victor V to do really, really well. Again, you've got the youngest player playing with one of the oldest players, Victor V, a young demon. I think he's a really good kid. I think he's really locked in as well. Paper and Victor V have been boot camping together for this. Victor V's dad's even come along. If you've watched any of Paper's streams, the dynamic between Paper, Victor V, and then Victor V's dad, who is like the coach, but he's really just the vibes man who stays in the call. I want to see them do well. I really, really do. They were contested coming into this. They're now uncontested. They're not on the strongest split, and I don't think anyone's going to randomly switch their job to try to contest them. They also could take advantage of the Brazil fight. I'm guessing Ed, Purser, Gon, and Quanti probably aren't going to fight, but then again, Gon and Quanti's vibes have to be absolutely through the floor right now with all the drama going on with them, so I'm not sure whether Paper and Victor V can take advantage of that, but they're kind of my vibe pick. You can't blame me for having one. There are a lot of really, really good teams I forgot on this list. Again, Chiefs and Iomzo, I'm super excited to see how well they go together for a cross-region team. They've been scrimming. Chiefs has been playing on EU ping and they've been doing phenomenally. I'm obviously forgetting a lot of the teams from the small region. I already explained that, but I hope this gives you a bit more insight coming into the LAN. I wanted to post this video at least a few days out from the LAN. I usually post it the day before, so I have the most updated drop map, but then you don't really have a lot of time to watch it before the LAN happens. So all of this could change, especially with the drop map changing. If you want to keep up to date with what's going on with the LAN event, I'm going to be making a whole bunch of content on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Aussie Antics, watching all of the scrim games and whatever's going on at the LAN. All the players are arriving at the LAN today, so they're going to be in the practice rooms. Hopefully we can get some 1v1, some 2v2s going, see whose mechanics are looking better than the rest. It should be a bunch of fun, but I hope you guys enjoyed my prediction video. If you guys want to leave your predictions down below, tell me I'm an idiot, please feel free, and hopefully you guys tune in for the LAN.